And now it's time for Talking Newspapers. Talking Newspapers is produced in the studios of 100.9 FM, Albany's community radio in association with the Lions Club of Albany and the Association for the Blind of WA. So let's get to it. Talking Newspapers.
Hello, I'm John, reading from the Advertiser.
And I'm June, reading from The Weekender.
And the first topic's rather sad. Investors' losses revealed. The extent of the collapse of the rare coin company has been revealed, with more than 20 investors, each owned figures exceeding $100,000. The liquidator of the Albany rare currency broker has released its circular to creditors ahead of the first creditors meeting this Friday, that would be yesterday, detailing an extensive list of investors owed a total of about $8 million. Documents obtained by the Albany Advertiser yesterday showed the largest unsecured creditor is owed $330,000, while Westpac Bank has moved to recover an outstanding $3 million debt by appointing receivers last week. Following an information seminar last Thursday, investors were told $7.8 million worth of stock sold on consignment in the past 6 months would unlikely be returned to them. Lawyer Jamie Hodgkinson, who addressed about 100 local investors, said the proceeds had been placed in an account which was now controlled by the bank's receiver. Mr. Hodgkinson said, as a result, it would be, quote, very difficult, unquote, to determine whose stock had been sold and if they would receive the proceeds of the sale. Mr. Hodgkinson said, it is therefore very difficult to determine if that money is held in trust. It is up to the receivers what happens. Your investments are in the hands of the receivers now, and they want to get their money back for the bank. They have no obligation to unsecured creditors. Mr. Hodgkinson said the news of the appointment of the PBB advisory receivers should concern investors who are hoping to have their rare currency returned to them. Since the collapse of the rare coin company on July the 8th, about $200 million worth of customer-owned stock the company held has been secured by the liquidators. However, the fate of the company's coins and notes assets, believed to be worth some $10 million, remain in question. After being officially appointed last Friday, receiver and manager Simon Theobald said PBB Advisory was thoroughly reviewing the company and compiling a detailed inventory of stock holdings and stock stored on behalf of investors. And Simon said, we appreciate that many investors will be anxious to see their property returned to them as soon as possible, and we will be working to facilitate this in a timely manner. However, given the volume of stock held, it is important that a thorough procedure to verify ownership and return goods be established and implemented. The receivers are expected to contact all investors by the end of this week, and more later on this sorry saga.
National Tree Day this weekend. Planet Ark is encouraging all Australians to get outside and grow for National Tree Day on Sunday, July 28th, or Schools Tree Day on Friday, July 26th, which has already happened and I'm sure was successful, and is calling for the help of keen planting site coordinators and green-thumbed enthusiasts. Each registered tree planting site and nature care activity will be part of a milestone event as Planet Ark and sponsor Toyota Australia prepare to plant the 20 millionth seedling since the event began in 1996. Site coordinators who register an activity with Planet Ark will go into the draw to win a luxurious nature getaway for two at a resort and spa. For more information about National Tree Day, visit treeday.planetark.org or call the hotline on 1300 885 000 or visit your local participating Toyota dealership. The City of Albany has organised planting at two locations tomorrow. The first is at Lake Seppings, the western edge near the Bird Hide, from 9:30 to 11:30. The second is taking place at Centennial Park, Living Stream, which is the corner of Sanford and North Roads, with activities from 10:30 to 12:30. Albany Mayor Dennis Wellington said, "We're inviting all residents to get outside and connect with nature, do something good for the environment and help their local community."
Coin investors express anger at seminar. So I continue the sorry saga, and there's a photograph of this group of investors concentrating very hard and looking very cross indeed. Now, the mood of uncertainty since the collapse of the Rare Coin Company a fortnight ago was revealed during a 90-minute information seminar last week. About 100 local investors sat back in disbelief as meeting host and insolvency lawyer Jamie Hodgkinson confirmed the fears many already held that their thousands of dollars in rare coin and note investments were in jeopardy. The seminar sought to alleviate investor concerns, but resulted in many locals leaving with further doubt. The worried looks on the faces of many retirement age investors whose nest eggs had been placed in serious question as a result of the liquidation was evident throughout the crowd. While some chose to sit back and absorb the information, a handful of men and women questioned the time frame surrounding the release of their rare coins and notes. Mr. Hodgkinson confirmed it could take between months and years for the liquidation of the company to be completed. He said news of Westpac Bank appointing receivers to receive $3 million owed to them had created fresh doubts as to when unsecured creditors would be able to have their investments returned. Many investors at the meeting claimed the value of their rare coins and banknotes had been inflated by between 30 and 50% before the company's slow demise over the past 18 months. One investor, who said he had received a statement regarding the value of his rare currency, said he attempted to cash in weeks later only to be denied. Mr. Hodgkinson stressed the information he was relaying was not legal advice after one investor floated the idea of a class action against the company. customers whose assets were in storage at the company's vault were advised to submit claims, but were told that the process would not be straightforward. And in a moment, I will tell you what the owner of the company has to say on this sorry subject.
Out on the street this week, the question was asked of various people, do you think media coverage of the birth of the British royal baby has been excessive? Is it right this baby will grow up to be our head of state? And there's a variety of opinions here. Neil Liddle from McHale said, absolutely yes. The media is selling a product with their coverage, and people are buying. If they weren't, it wouldn't pay their wages. And Xavier Sharowitz of Albany, I think it is over the top. I don't think Australia will be a republic by the time this child takes the throne. There is too much support for the royal family in Australia for us to become a republic. And Delma Bezaju, I haven't watched or seen any of it, but a lot of people are excited. It is a bit over the top, but if that's what turns you on, that's okay. I would like to see us as a republic, but I don't think it will happen. And Ian Herbst from Bayonet Head, I think it has been a little bit oversaturated, but then again it is a new baby for the royal family, even though babies are born all the time. I don't think the baby should grow up to be head of state. Australia should be for Australians. And Lauren Cecil of Albany says, it's just another baby born with a silver spoon in its mouth. It is not fair and not right. They should have so much privilege and grow up to be our head of state. And Michael Graham of Perth said, I think we all need to grow up and forget about all this royal family rubbish. They are politically and socially irrelevant. This isn't the Middle Ages, and no one has divine right to rule.
And I'll have my little say. Having voted last time for the Republic, I'm now thoroughly disillusioned with having the idea of an elected head of state. I'd rather have an hereditary one for whom the duty of being a nominal head of state was taken very seriously. And if William and the new bub will do it, I'd be glad to have them. I've had my say. I bet June will have hers when it comes round to her turn. Now, on to the owner blames the global financial crisis for the company collapse. So keep your hair on while I read this one. It's about the Rare Coin Company. The former managing director of the Rare Coin Company, Rob Jackman, has blamed the global financial crisis for the collapse of his company, which owes investors around $7 million. Expressing his thoughts via his corporate social media profile on LinkedIn, Mr. Jackman took aim at the media for not reporting the true story behind his business. Mr. Jackman stated, after 33 years in business, the global financial crisis took its toll, and we have ceased to trade. What the media didn't report is the $100 million clients have made and cashed in on in that time. That's the sad part. Out of the $7 million owed, around $2.3 million is to Albany-based investors caught up in the collapse. Albany man Colin Park is one of the hundreds of investors set to attend tomorrow's first creditors meeting at the Princess Royal Theatre. Now that will have taken place by now, and is demanding answers. In a circular to creditors released earlier this week, liquidator Sheraton's chartered accountant stated $7.2 million worth of rare currency had been sold, but at the time of appointment of the liquidator, the proceeds had not been received by clients. In this event, clients are noted as creditors of the company. This was explained by liquidator Jennifer Lowe, who went on to say, if you had consignment stock held by the company, I do not currently know if your stock remains intact or whether it was partially or totally sold. Mr. Park bought a 1961 Coombs Wilson £1 note in 2002 for $3,800 and is now worried he will not see any of his investment returned. Mr. Park said he was sympathetic to retirees who had, quote, stacked all their eggs in the one basket, unquote, and would nominate to be part of the Mr. Park would nominate to be part of the committee of investigation set to be informed tomorrow. The Jackmans could not be contacted by the Albany Advertiser, and the Advertiser is keen to know what you think. So you email subdesk at Albany Advertiser, all one word, small case, .com, or you can send them a letter.
Boy dies in farm crash. An 11-year-old boy has died after crashing a car into a tree while driving on a farm near Franklin on Tuesday. His 9-year-old sister, who was a passenger in the car, suffered an arm injury and was flown to Perth for medical treatment. It is believed the siblings were driving on the Franklin River Properties driveway to meet the morning school bus when the car struck a tree, causing it to overturn. Police were notified of the incident at about 4:30 p.m. and are releasing no further details of the incident. However, they confirmed inquiries are continuing and a report will be prepared for the coroner.
A new vision for a sports precinct. There is little doubt the $42 million Centennial Park Sporting Precinct Master Plan will provide some short-term pain to current users. However, the City of Albany has promised there is much gain from plans 40 years in the making. The master plan, out for public comment, has been divided into 3 precincts. Much work has already begun improving drainage that has plagued the area for decades, after $4.1 million of initial funding was provided by the state government in 2008. One of the major changes in the plan is the much-needed separation of winter sports, with juniors filling Centennial Oval and the North Road playing fields every Saturday morning. Soccer will be relocated from one end of North Road to the other, and Australian rules football will take over the eastern end and the current soccer grounds. Acting Executive Director of Community Services Cameron Woods said junior football was now held over 3 precincts, but would eventually be located at the eastern precinct around the revamped Centennial Oval. Cameron Woods said, "The growth rates for junior footy and soccer are increasing, but they need their own space and identity. This plan provides development pathways for sports and athletes." I think they mean that metaphorically rather than literally. The plan requires sports, service and youth groups to share facilities. Of the 9 involved in the precinct, 8 have agreed. Oh dear. While the city has the funding to get the precinct underway this year, future funding for facilities depends on co-sharing. The Albany Agricultural Society has disagreed over concerns the co-sharing would affect the annual November show that has become an icon in the city. Society President Erica Henderson told the July Council meeting it had not co-signed an agreement because there was still much to be discussed. She was also concerned the Society had nowhere to go if existing buildings facing Lockyer Avenue were demolished before replacements were finished. Mr. Wood said the Albany show would still be held on Centennial Oval for the next 2 years, with major work on the East Precinct not expected to begin until after 2014. Post the 2014 show, we will start the East Precinct. During the show week, all of Centennial Oval will be available. We've had to look after the major stadium surface, but horses can use other fields. He said negotiations were ongoing with the Society to provide facilities once the existing buildings were demolished. By then, the city hopes to receive the funding for infrastructure, including display halls and administration. The more groups that co-locate, the more chance for funding, he said.
Defibrillator boost in Denmark. The rollout of defibrillators in Denmark is complete, with 14 units now located throughout the town. St John Ambulance Project Coordinator Vicky Wilson said people suffering a sudden cardiac arrest in a public place in Denmark now have a real chance of survival. She said members of the community had volunteered to work with St John and act as first responders if an incident occurred in their area. This means there is a really good chance that the defibrillator will get to the patient within those first critical minutes before the ambulance arrives, Ms Wilson said. With the existing defibrillators that the local medical and emergency services maintain and deploy, there are now 22 defibrillators available within the Shire, a ratio of 1 for approximately every 250 residents. This figure increases dramatically during the tourist season, but this is also when they are most likely to be needed. Ms Wilson said the Denmark St John Ambulance Sub-Centre was grateful that Denmark Shire, businesses, groups and volunteers had enthusiastically supported the initiative. It has made our community more resilient and could potentially save many lives, she said. The rollout of the defibrillators is the realisation of a goal set 2 years ago by the St John Ambulance Denmark Sub-Centre and the Denmark Shire Council to place a defibrillator within reach wherever large groups of people gather. Now, there is a large list provided with this item, but far too many for me to read out. I would only suggest Denmark listeners get in touch with their Shire and perhaps get them to publish something in the little local paper over there. The following paragraph, though, says the rollout follows a similar project in Albany by Councillor Ray Hammond, who organised businesses to support having defibrillators placed at strategic locations.
And now a letter from Mervyn Leavesley. The heading is, where is the extra money and what of the payout? I think we would all agree that if the disposable income of Albany residents was reduced by $44 million, it would have dire consequences for local traders. In 4 years, rates revenue has risen from $19 million for the year ending June the 30th, 2009, to current budget rates of $29 million. Fees and charges in 2009 were $7 million. This budget is $15 million. I'm rounding the figures. These increases are not as a result of growth. That's his assertion. It has been well published that Albany has the lowest growth rate of any regional centre in WA, but he hasn't quoted them, what it is. I used the 2009 figures as my baseline and calculated the additional cost to residents each year from that baseline to give the impact of the increases on residents. The total between 2010 and 2013 being over that initial figure of $44 million. It is my opinion that prudent stewardship of the city would have seen rises in line with the recently announced 10-year plan at 4.5%. Using the same calculations, this would have given an additional cost to residents of $13 million over the 4 budgets. So what we're really talking about here is the difference, a not inconsiderable $31 million. That is $31 million more than the people of Albany should have paid. So, what have we got for our additional $31 million? Have we secured the future of Albany Entertainment Centre when the state government hands it over to us? No. Have we put aside $10 million for Anzac commemorations? No. Have we refurbished our beautiful town hall? Sorry, no. This budget, Albany's residents' contribution in rates and fees and charges has gone up to $44 million. Wonder why we have empty shops? People can't spend their money twice. In fact, it's very difficult to see where this $31 million has gone. Perhaps it is in the silo named Ratepayers Must Not Know. As a concerned ratepayer, I would really like to know what has happened to our $31 million. I would also like to know if this year's budget includes any money whatsoever that will be paid or has been paid to former Chief Executive Faylene James, and if so, how much? I'm not asking what the settlement was, including any amounts paid by the city's insurance. But if any public money has been used in this settlement, the public has a right to know.
You're listening to Talking Newspapers on 100.9 FM. The time is 12:30.
Now some birth notices for you. Chana and Kylie are proud to announce the safe arrival of a beautiful brother to Taya, Byron James. He was born in Mount Barker in South Australia. And also the Skinner Burtons have had a little baby boy, a little Jackson. That's Nathan and Rachel. They had an early arrival of their little boy, 5 weeks, at King Edward Memorial Hospital. We also have Belton. Linda and Kevin Belton proudly announced the arrival of their son, Paddy Marvin, who was born in Kalgoorlie, July 6th. And Leanne and Matt Thompson announced the arrival of Anna Lee, who was born on Tuesday, 25th of June, and she was born here in Albany. We also have an engagement. Richard and Dawn Chadwick announced the engagement of their daughter Kelly Chadwick to Isaac Marwick, who's the son of John Marwick, an old workmate of mine. Congratulations, John. And we also have a 70th birthday for Erica Woolhouse, and there's happy birthday from all the gang. There's far too many names for me to read out here. And we also have another couple of little birth notices. We've got Lydia May Little, who was born on March the 7th. So she's proud daughter, second daughter for Miriam and Craig, and she's a big sister for Emily Joanna. And then we have Ben Graham Kramer, who was born on July 17th. He was 4.7 kilo. He's a bonny lad. And he's the first child for proud parents Angie Bevan and Chris Kramer, and the first grandchild for thrilled grandparents Peter and Jeff Kramer and Jenny and Craig Bevan.
As a footnote to the letter I recently read out, here might be a partial answer. Councillors' fees triple to $22,000. Albany City Council members will receive more than triple the previous amount they have previously for attending meetings, with the council adopting the maximum fees payable to its councillors in this year's budget. Councillors' meeting fees have increased from $7,000 to $22,000, with $264,000 budgeted for the payments, increase from $84,500 in the last financial year. Albany Mayor Dennis Wellington's meeting fees have more than doubled, from $14,000 to $29,500. The increase comes after the statewide Salaries and Allowances Tribunal review of local government allowances, which changed the minimum for, quote, Band 2, unquote, councillors to $14,500, with the maximum $22,000. Mr. Wellington said the council chose to adopt the highest fee offered in the bracket in order to attract the best possible candidates to councillors' positions in the future. Mr. Wellington said the members' fees have not changed for 14 to 17 years. They were drastically low for a long period. We have been lagging behind for many years. This will help us into the future. The mayoral package is $93,000, up from last year's financial year's $77,400, incorporating a mayoral allowance of $60,000, that's unchanged from last year, and an information, communication and technology allowance. The Mayor has also provided a car for official council business. The council law package, which includes meeting fees and a $3,500 information, communication and technology allowance, has increased from $10,400 to $25,500. And the editor of the Albany Advertiser is dead keen that you should tell them what you think. So you are to email subdesk@albanyadvertiser.com or send them a letter.
Looking at science in the region. An annual conference showcasing the science which is taking place in the Great Southern and South Coast will be held in Albany next month. Great Southern Great Science includes presentations on nationally significant work which is important for the Great Southern and local research and development by scientists and professionals. The symposium will be presented by the Great Southern Science Council with the Western Australian Chief Scientist, the WA Museum Albany, and the University of Western Australia's Centre of Excellence in Natural Resource Management. It will be held on Thursday, August 8th at the Albany Entertainment Centre from 9 a.m. to 3:30. Registration includes morning and afternoon teas and lunch. The symposium is aimed at scientists, professionals, students and members of the community with an interest in research and teaching in science for the region. Tickets can be booked through 9842 0838. Full registration is $45. Session 1 features a Winthrop Professor Peter Davies from UWA, and he's talking about exploring Darwin's unfinished business in the Southern Hemisphere. And there's Dr. Craig Sinclair, UWA Rural Clinical School of WA, and his topic is improving the quality of end-of-life care in the Great Southern region. So mark your diaries for that one and book your tickets.
Now for the death notices. Lewis Graham, brother to Marion, Ronald and Colin, father of Michael deceased, uncle to Owen and Stephen, and great-uncle to Erin. He died in the Mount Barker Hospital on the 21st of July, and there's no funeral notice for him. The second one is Trout, Nancy Trout, who was born on the 23rd of July 1930 and died on the 16th of July, and that seems to be from the children Danny and Sandra. The third is just a funeral notice for Mr. Keys, Mr. Kenneth Malcolm Keys of Lower King Road, Albany. This was held yesterday, Friday, the 26th. Death notice for Koscieny, Koscieny, Stanislaw, known as Stan, who was born on the 22nd of June 1922 and died at Clarence Estate on the 17th of July. Husband of Maria deceased, father of Ted, Helen, Irene deceased, father-in-law of Glenys Kerry, granddad of Suzanne Russell, Leanne Cameron, Jason, and great-grandfather of Ashley, Mitchell, Jack and Grace, and a private funeral service for Mr. Stanislaw Kozienny was held on Tuesday the 23rd of July in accordance with his family's wishes. A death notice for Daphne Rosina Nichols, who was born on the 19th of June 1918 and died on the 23rd of July. This is from her children, grandchildren and spouses, from Anne, Tom, Sandra, Damien, Hayden, Katie, Mark, Marilyn, Jessica and Chase. Now the next one is Kately, and the service was held at Kelmscott yesterday, Friday, but the interment of Mr. Aubrey Kately, formerly of Albany and Wickepin, his interment will take place at Lambie Park Cemetery in Lower King Road next Tuesday the 30th at 10:30 a.m. I found the Nichols funeral. That was held this Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. and there's a brief notice that for a funeral for Westlake, Kenneth Westlake, his funeral was held on the 25th of July at Lambie Park.
Construction is set to begin on a $130,000 arena that will enable people with disabilities to enjoy horse riding activities year-round. The arena, funded by a Lotteries West grant received in April last year, will be used by the Riding for the Disabled Association, Albany Riding and Driving Group. Group President Wendy Minchin said the arena would enable weekly riding and fortnightly carriage driving events to go ahead in wet weather. The quote the grant was based on was given in 2011, and since then there have been two 10% rises in steel prices, so we had to scale it back a bit, she said. We hoped for a 72-metre arena, which is the size of a dressage ring, but in the short term we can build a 42-metre one and hope to gain further funding in the future. Riding for the Disabled has been running in Albany for 30 years and carriage driving for the disabled for the past 20, with the two groups combining last October. School-aged children from Mount Lockyer and Spencer Park primary schools take part in riding events, while teenagers and adults drive horse-drawn carriages. They have the freedom to get in the saddle, and having a certain amount of control over the horse is enjoyable for them, Mrs. Minchin said. Earthworks start very soon and the arena is due to be completed by the end of the year.
Changes to Property Act to affect landlords and tenants. This is general information only and does not constitute specific legal advice, but it's interesting nonetheless. On July the 1st, 2013, significant changes were made to the Residential Tenancies Act 1987. The changes affect all landlords and tenants, whether the arrangement is private or under property management. While the changes affect all aspects of leasing arrangements, three of the most critical changes to watch out for are as follows. 1. All new written residential tenancy agreements must be in the prescribed form. There cannot be any changes made to the terms of the prescribed form. While additional clauses can be added to address property specifics, those additional clauses cannot detract from or diminish the effect of the mandatory terms set out in the prescribed form. I think what he's saying is if you make any additions, they can't contradict or go against a legal interpretation of what was in the initial agreement. Right, number 2. Minimum security standards for properties have been introduced. Landlords have 2 years from July the 1st, 2013 to get their property up to the minimum standards, which includes deadbolts on ground level doors, locks on all windows, and porch lights at all front entries. 3. Option fees which may be charged by landlords to prospective tenants have been capped. For properties asking rent of less than $500, the capped option fee is $50. For properties with rent between $500 and $1,200, the capped option fee is $100, and for properties with rent over $1,200, the option fee is capped at. They have $1,200 here. I wonder if it should be $120. No, it probably would be $1,200. Heavy penalties have been introduced with the changes. A landlord who fails to comply with the new requirements is likely to face penalties of $5,000 or more. An expanded summary of the recent changes to the Residential Tenancies Act 1987 can be found in the article selection of HHA Legal Group website at www.hhg.com.au.
Well, I've got a wee letter here to read out of the Weekender. And it's from Bob Elms of Lake Seppings. And it reads, "A few months ago I bought an electric gopher with a view to using it to shop at the Spencer Park Shopping Centre, a distance of 1 kilometre. However, I found that the 100 metres from opposite my driveway in Collingwood Road to Wharton Avenue is a mess of gullies and humps, with stones and gravel making for an uncomfortable journey. I wrote to the City of Albany requesting that the 100 metres of footpath from Warden View to a place opposite my driveway be cleaned up so that I could use it with greater degree of comfort and safety. I received a reply from the council agreeing with my statement and informing me that the footpaths in this area were on the city management plan and work would go ahead but would not be completed for 10 years. That makes for an interesting scenario, with me holding my 101st birthday celebration on the new footpath. You are all invited. Hope I can make it." Now, Bob is the father of my supreme choir master, young Patrick Elms, and I now see where Patrick gets his sense of humour from.
Now, from the Albany Advertiser of 1881, a little bit of history. And it's been put, the picture comes from the Albany History Collection, and it's a photograph of Princes Albert and George. George is on the right, in their visit to Albany in 1881, being naval cadets aboard the HMS Bacchante, while the Bacchante undertook repairs for a broken rudder, the future King George V played cricket with the locals and stayed at Marblelup Farm with David Young and family. Now, I'm a bit puzzled about this, and you royalist watchers, get to your thinking caps on. If the princes are Albert and George, they're sons of the one who became Edward VI, took the throne in 1903 and died in 1910. So it's telling us that photographed here is George, who became George V in 1910 to 1935. But I have in the back of my mind, in fact, it was Prince Albert that succeeded, but seeing Queen Victoria never wanted there to be a King Albert in memory of her beloved Albert, Prince Albert took the name of George. But I'm not sure about this. Which one is George V? Is it Prince Albert or Prince George? But they both look young and eager and somewhat, one of them, I won't say which, looks rather full of himself.
And now some community notices. The Arthritis Foundation WA, incorporating Osteoporosis WA, it's a notice declaring that sessions at the Albany Health Campus Hydrotherapy Pool will commence on Monday, July 29th. The telephone number to ring is 98429229. And the Albany National Seniors Annual General Meeting will be held on Thursday, August 1st at 2 p.m. at the Bob Thompson Annex on Centennial Oval. And inquiries are 9841 3061. There's also a UWA Albany Public Lecture, which will be held on Tuesday, August 13th from 5:30 to 6:30 in the UWA Albany Centre in Stirling Terrace, and the topic is Beauty, Love and Art, the Legacy of Ancient Greece. And David Constan, who's Professor of Classics at New York University, will be presenting this. Enquiries on 9842 0850.
The Albany Advertiser for Thursday, July the 25th has 3 lovely photographs. The first one is from Richard Poolish. It's of a rainbow snapped from Great Southern Grammar School grounds in Lower Calgon, and the rainbow extends, is an arc that, without a break, right across the sky, and the colours of deep green, where there's no sun, to light green, a little strip of light green where there is, then the line of trees behind, then the dark of the sky with the rainbow and just a hint of the second rainbow. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. The second was Irene Smith. It's an interesting snapshot of the entry to the Nannarup Pool, and there's a stunner sent in by Joel Gibson, a shot taken from Mount Melville looking towards Denmark as the sun set, and the colours are magnificent, and the trees against the skyline, and just that little slither of pink and then little slither of yellow before it shades into the blue. Well done, Joel. You got a wonderful shot. And if you have an equally stunning snapshot, email it to subdesk@albanyadvertiser.com.
Walker on a Mission. A chance encounter with a sick little girl has sent a 20-year-old Adelaide man on an epic around Australia walk for charity. Jimmy Harrington was windswept and weathered about 35 kilometres east of Albany last Friday after enduring nearly 3 days of wild conditions. If the rain had in any way dampened his spirits, it didn't show, as he kept on with his 18,000-kilometre, 12-month trek for the cancer charity Brainchild Foundation, inspired by the life and death of Emily Crook. I used to work in a cafe, and Emily, who was the granddaughter of one of the ladies now on my support crew, came in quite often, he said. Watching her battle with cancer was inspiring, the way she kept her spirits up. Mr. Harrington hopes to raise $300,000 for the cause, and to follow his journey and donate, you can go to www.jimmyswalkforcancer.com.
Tradesmen on the move. Lack of construction projects force skilled workers to leave Albany. A lack of jobs and major construction projects, that is a lack of, has forced many skilled and unskilled workers to leave Albany in search of better work opportunities. Recruitment agencies have reported an increase of up to 20% of people looking for work in the past 3 months, citing the completion of Albany Health Campus as a reason for the rise in people moving. ATC WorkSmart recruitment consultant Greg Hunter describes the employment situation as patchy, with no major construction projects on the immediate horizon, forcing many skilled tradespeople to seek work outside the region. Greg said, "There's not a lot of work out there at the moment. Even skilled people can't find work. I think it has risen since the hospital is finished. We have got people who've been looking for work for 2 to 3 months." Mr. Hunter said he knew of a couple who had moved to the region, but the husband, a qualified mechanical welder, was forced to move back to Perth while his wife remained in Albany. Regarding the future, Mr. Hunter said, "I can't see much happening in the next 6 months." Skill Hire Albany branch manager Stephen Quain described the condition as very flat and said 10 people had walked into his York Street office on Tuesday morning looking for more work. And he went on to say, "It's a bit flatter than normal. There are no big projects going on." Qualified carpenters and plumbers and electricians who spoke to the Albany Advertiser this week said good word of mouth was vital in securing long-term work in the current economic climate. Plumber Darcy Rader said he decided to leave Albany because there was no long-term work on the horizon after he had worked on the new health campus for the previous 18 months. Mr. Rader said the lure of better wages in Karratha helped his decision, and he knew of other tradespeople who had left Albany for the same reasons.
Carers set sail. Young carers in Albany who help out around the home for family members with an illness or disability had a well-earned break from the everyday last Thursday. A group of carers from 8 to 25 years of age took to the waters of King George Sound on a whale-watching expedition with Albany Whale Tours. Jen Dodson from Carers WA organised the outing to give a special treat to the young carers who offer help, mostly to siblings over and above what might be found elsewhere. She said because of their devotion to family, they might not be able to find the time for individual activities.
Margaret Ann Woolhouse, 72, was 7 years old when she first became involved with the Australian Red Cross. Mrs. Woolhouse, likes to be known as Anne, said the service came to her school in Albury, New South Wales, and told students about its work, which at that time was Comfort for the Troops, by raising money to buy wool for women who knitted stocks and balaclavas, and the children helped at that time. But she had a hiatus in her efforts during married life, but took them up again in 1999 because her husband Arnold didn't like her not being at home. He thought a woman's place was in the home. So she said, I didn't do much volunteering for a while, but when he passed away in 1999, I got full on it again into the Red Cross shop the same year, and she's still at it 14 years later.
And that's it for Talking Newspapers this week. Tune in again next week and we'll do it